Alright, boys and ghouls. So, I made a post about this maybe last week or so. We just hit the 2-year anniversary of the channel, and the first video I ever did when I started was Ginger Snaps, chosen at random. I didn't know what to talk about and stuff, or what movie to pick. There's so many favorites and stuff. So I said, let me go on Tubi or at whatever streaming service and just shut my eyes and scroll through and then stop on a film. And it stopped on Ginger Snaps. So I luckily adore that film. So that was a good first video. It's not a good video, don't go back and watch that shit. But that was how we started. Then when we hit a year anniversary of the channel, I figure let's go back and do Ginger Snaps 2. Which I've been saying for like the last week when mentioning this third movie. I couldn't remember the name of this fucking movie. Like, for the life of me. Unleashed is Ginger Snaps 2. So it's Ginger Snaps 2 Unleashed. And this is Ginger Snaps Back, the beginning. Now, you can go back and watch Ginger Snaps 2. That video's at the end of that movie. Now, this is a prequel, the beginning, obviously. It's called The Beginning. I don't remember a thing about this movie. But I could see why they had to go back and do a prequel. And this came out the exact same year as Ginger Snaps 2. So I don't know, they must have filmed this back to back or at even the same time. I didn't really look into it. But we have Katharine Isabelle returning here, who's just beautiful and a phenomenal actress. American Mary, she's been in so many things. I think that's maybe her standout role is in American Mary. Check that film out by the Soska sisters if you've never seen American Mary. Some great body horror in there. Very good film. Emily Perkins, I think, is adorable too, and another great actress. Like, I think she gives a great performance in 2. She leads that whole film. Katharine Isabelle's not in the second movie except for little, like maybe 5 minutes altogether. Tiny little, like, apparitions, or like it's in Brigitte's consciousness that she's seeing her sister. So she's not really in the film. Again, I don't remember this, but basically, the plot for this, that it says on Tubi, is that we follow, like, the ancestors of Brigitte and Ginger in, like, I don't know, the 1800s, something like that. Which, one, I'm not a big fan of movies that go back, like, to olden times. And for a series like this, of Ginger Snaps, I mean, it's not a series I love or anything. I just really love the first film. The second one is alright. It's fun. For a prequel going back to olden times, like for the third and last entry in this series, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. This is basically going to be like a blind watch. But when I brought up earlier about the 2-year anniversary of the channel, first of all, obviously, thank you again, and as always, to everybody who has watched, shared our videos, liked, all the friends that I've made, and great people that I've been able to collaborate with and work with. It's a blast, just doing this. Now, there's a few things I wanted to just say real quick about the channel, since especially with it being the 2-year anniversary, like, within the last few days. I thought it was interesting. I was watching a video last night from, like, the only channel I watch that is in the millions of subscribers. Some of you know and could guess what it is. And they had a stream afterwards. So I was watching some of it in the background while I was doing whatever. And I've said many times that doing these videos and recording reviews and talking about movies, and it's kind of like therapy. From me talking to you guys and whoever listens and watches. It really is. It's maybe just a way of getting my thoughts out, because they race a mile a minute with millions of thoughts, so maybe it works some way like that. But I was watching that stream on that channel and heard him say word for word exactly that, and I said, hey, it's not just me. Then he went on to say something that really stuck with me. And I want to say it here because it captured another feeling that I absolutely feel when I make content for this channel. He said that he's never more honest than when he's on a stream or or communicating with his followers and with friends and stuff like that in his content. And that really stuck with me. Because, I mean, I like to think of myself as an honest person, you know, for the most part, all the time, but it's the same feeling with me. Like, these videos, the reviews, the discussions, the live streams and everything, it's basically, it's me at my most honest. Like, for some reason, I'm comfortable enough to say things and, like, dive into personal things sometimes and stuff like that with you guys. I don't. It's weird. It's a whole tangent, I know, and it's not Ginger Snaps, but it's something that really stuck with me. And since this video is based around the channel in some way, with the origin being Ginger Snaps, the original, figured I had to share that. Another thing, yeah, you may notice. I mean, everybody, I'm sure at this point has noticed. I like color. Like, you're talking, or you're listening to a 35-year-old single father with a bad back. So, yeah, you're damn right, I'm comfortable recording these videos. That in his 20s was following around jam bands of Fish and the Grateful Dead and stuff. Obviously, without Jerry, he died when I was very young. The Disco Biscuits, like, a hippie, basically. I like lights. Maybe that's why I gravitate towards Italian horror. So my Argento films, especially, and stuff. I love the aesthetic. So, yeah, I use filters often, and I color shifts and stuff, and even with regular lighting, I put on shades and stuff for color. It's just what I prefer. So, I mean, it's never really come up, except for Hector, which we've had a recurring gag about the lighting and the color and stuff like that. But he gets it at this point. I mean, Hector, you're amazing. Like, you commented, watch like almost everything. You can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you. But enough of all that. Again, thanks everybody just for all the support and love for the last 2 years. And I feel like this is going to be the year. I feel like this is going to be a year that the channel really, really grows significantly, which brings me to a final point. I really don't want a huge channel or anything like that. I have enough stress and hard time running a channel now with 1,000 subscribers. A little over that. I don't want tens of thousands and shit like that. But if it happens, it happens. Whatever. So Ginger Snaps back. The beginning. I told you I can't remember the name of this movie for any reason. Let's get into it and watch this. Because, like I said, this is like a blind watch. I know I've seen it. I don't remember anything except for not caring for it really at all. So there's going to probably be a decent amount of stupid shit in here that we can overanalyze and have fun with, as always. Now, the director of this film, I have no idea. I've never heard of the name. But the director of the original, John Fawcett, I know he produced the sequel, but I just checked. He had nothing to do with this film. And, I mean, that gives me less hope. Now, that's something I do like about the second movie, is there's some kills in there that look pretty good. I don't care for the werewolves in this whole series. They don't look terrible, but even in the original, like, I love the gradual transformation. But I don't know, I feel like they could have made a better design for the werewolf. Getting back to something I started on very long ago, blame the band. All that time was they had to make a prequel here, because at the end of Ginger Snaps 2, I mean, Ginger was dead from the first movie, and then at the end of Ginger Snaps 2, we have that whole thing with the girl with a stupid name who's evil and burnt her aunt to a fucking crisp, and she's been in the hospital, like this whole evil girl subplot that makes no real sense and is not good. And I'm pretty sure that Brigitte, she turns into a werewolf, but then I think she gets stabbed. So I don't know if she dies too, I forget. But they're both werewolves or dead by the end of the second movie. So they had to go this prequel route. I'm really interested, actually, if they film this simultaneously at the same time with 2, with them being released the same year. And this takes place in 1815, which is the 19th century for some younger viewers. And there's a decent opening credit that kind of reminded me of like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and the sequel especially, because it's fresh in my mind from seeing it this year, with not cartoon, but like a storybook like opening with some text saying in 1815 this group of people went out on boats to whatever other land to try to find, and collect pelts from animals and bring them back in the fall to help them get through the treacherous winter. And in this specific year, they never came back. I think there was like 30 something of them. And we see a brief little shot of a werewolf mauling the shit out of somebody. Now, the whole prequel thing, again, especially in movies like this, where the same actresses are playing their ancestors, I don't like that for the most part, because sure, there are ancestors and, modern day people who look just like their ancestors, like almost to a T. So yes, it happens. But examples like this, these are like doppelgangers, not ancestors. They have every same character trait. They have the same manners, and of course it's played by the same people. I know I'm overanalyzing it. I just don't like that whole trope of using the same actors, going back in time, and that's their ancestors, that's why they look identical. Just a thing. They're basically on horseback. Ginger and is their names Ginger and Brigitte in this? We'll find out, but that's again what I mean. If their names are Ginger and Brigitte, then again they're fucking doppelgangers and not ancestors and whatever. So they're on horseback in the wilderness, and we have the voiceover from Brigitte, and she's the one who mentions the Wendigo curse and that the end times are coming. And then they end up coming across a camp. So I don't know if it's a bad sign or not, but like 10 minutes into this movie, I just decided I need to take a shower. I went and showered, came back, and now we're at the 10-minute mark. So I don't know what made me do that. Now we're back to Ginger Snaps. Just thought I'd throw that and leave this in here after the final edit. And their names are Brigitte and Ginger Fitzgerald in this. And yeah, speaking of the bad back earlier, I'm fucking relaxing because this is not giving me good hope. Just the opening 15 minutes of this movie. But their names are Brigitte and Ginger Fitzgerald. So maybe they do. Maybe they bring up that they are doppelgangers in some way, but I don't think so. But you can be damn sure that I'm going to get comfortable for it, just in case this sucks. And honestly, this is another reason that, and this is why I'm labeling this video, this movie discussion and stuff / channel talk. Figure it's the best time, for this movie with its history. The reason I feel that I'm so comfortable, talking to you guys who watch and anyone else who does, is it's very intimate. That's one thing I always try to keep on this channel, even as time has gone on and I've gotten better with editing and putting clips in and stuff like that. The reviews discussions are always going to be relaxed like this. It's just going to be like hanging out talking with a friend or listening to a friend talk about a movie. I just like that style. There's certain channels that inspired me early on in a similar style, like very laid back. It's like you're just hanging out with a friend. And no knock on any type of channels who put more production into it to make it more like an official like TV show feel almost, or anything like that. There's great channels like that too. It's just what I prefer. I feel like it's more intimate. I feel like I get to know you guys more in the premiere, with each premiere that passes, with every video and stuff, with our comments and going back and forth talking movies and the collaborations with friends of mine and other channels. And it also is reciprocated by, I feel like you guys get to know me very well just by the intimate, personal, laid-back nature of how I run this channel. If any of that makes sense. So hopefully that's something you guys appreciate, but that's something that'll never change. One thing I will say so far with this, it looks really good. Like the location in the woods, and they shot this in Canada. It's beautiful. So the cinematography is good in this movie. But they get lost in the woods, and they come across this old bitch who ends up telling them that they have to kill some boy. Otherwise, they're going to kill each other. Like, that's what I took from it. That one of them are going to kill the other one. And to stop it, they got to kill this boy. So, of course, they think this woman's insane, and they leave. And then you hear the howls of werewolves that are implied they're following them. So this guy, the hunter, ends up showing up. That's his name, the hunter. And he saves them, and they end up going to a fort. And that's where we're at now. It's not great at all. Like, I'm really already losing interest 20 minutes into this movie. But the cinematography is good. I had to look it up because it was really bothering me. For a split second, too. Like, it was nothing. But there's a scene where this guy, the doctor at this fort, is looking at a wound that they got. I think it's Ginger, but who the fuck cares? It's one of them, and it's a wound on her arm. And from the back of his head, when the scene started, I said, that's not Robert Englund. Right? It looked like the back of Robert Englund's head. And then a split second later, I said, there's no goddamn way he ever took time to be in a film like this. And that led me to looking, because when I did my video and rewatched Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College, I thought that was Kane Hodder, who had a very brief role falling down into a mop bucket and falling down the stairs. And I said in that video, it looks like Kane Hodder, but Kane Hodder wouldn't be in this. And I totally forgot, his relationship with John Carl Buechler, and he probably would be in that. Then I was told, I think in the comments or by somebody else, or friend, that it was Kane Hodder. Larry, was it you? For some reason I want to say Larry. I can be completely wrong, though. If you're not subscribed to Larry, my buddy over at the Horror Cat Dad, please go over and do that. Great guy, great content. But it made me think of that. And made me think, all right, well, I could be wrong. But then they showed his face like a second later. So like I said, it was a waste of a lookup. But while I was looking it up, and yeah, it's not Robert Englund. I don't think I had to say that. I looked into when this was filmed. And first of all, this was direct-to-video, which I was pretty sure about. But it was filmed back-to-back. Not concurrently, but it was filmed back-to-back with Ginger Snaps 2. And it had a very... The sequel, too, had a very bad run in the theaters. Didn't do well, so then this one ended up going direct-to-video. So that explains a decent amount so far. For those of you who had to know, it's Brigitte who got the wound. So they're at Fort Bailey, is the name of this place. And Ginger, still bothers me, that's their name still, ends up asking him why there's so many graves. And it turns out that their father, Brigitte and Ginger's father, was one of the people that never came back, that went on their expedition every year for the pelts, the animal pelts, and were killed by the werewolves. So they're the daughters of one of them. And he's being asked by Ginger, like, what's all the graves around the fort? Is it from chicken pox? The pox that was going around, as she calls it. I like how she calls it the pox. Just the way she says it, I don't know. It's just some positive I could throw this. And he starts going off saying, no, like, didn't you see the creatures and stuff? So it turns out that the werewolves have been tormenting this fort for a while and killing off a decent amount of people that they just bury, right outside the fort. All of this is fine so far. It's not really that intriguing or anything, or entertaining. It's fine. But another thing I don't like about movies like this that are set in these times, and Mike, if you ever watch this, if you're not subscribed to Mike at The Real Fifth Beatle, definitely go subscribe to him also. Great friend of mine. We both don't like The Witch. Can't stand that film. Like, I don't know what it is, but a big issue I have with it is the way they talk. And here it's even worse. I mean, this is the 19th century, and there's no type of, like, old English used or anything. It's all, like, just modern talk, and that immediately takes me out of this whole setting of the 19th century, and that's a big issue I have with The Witch. One thing I do like, there'll be bloopers for this video for sure. One thing I do like, and it's a small detail, and I don't know how it works in the context of this movie, but when Bridget's getting her wound, which is implied to maybe be a werewolf bite or a scratch, but they say they didn't see the creatures. They just heard the howls. So they're putting leeches on her wound to test for werewolf infection. That's clever. Again, I don't know how the hell that works, or if it does, or if it's a superstition that they had back in the day that leeches will show a sign on a wound that was a werewolf bite. I don't know how any of it works, but just at least it's something creative. It's something new. It's something I've never really heard or seen before. Going back to the cinematography, like I said, and the woods, how it looks really good. The set here of the fort and everything looks pretty good too. Like for a direct-to-video third film in this series that didn't have a successful sequel, it's pretty convincing. Like, they did a good job with the sets here. This one guy, they're having dinner, and he says, like, he does use some old English. He says something about thanks for bringing this food to us and providing it unto thee. Like, so he uses some old terms, but still not enough. And especially with Ginger and Brigitte. Like, it really takes me out of this whole time period. This is a period piece. If you're going to do a period piece, I don't care how cheap the movie is or how low of a budget you have. If you can't make it right, and like make it feel like the period it's supposed to take place in, don't do the movie. Like, that's just how I feel about it. Write to your budget. If you know you're not going to be able to teach these people or write a script and look into Old English and look how they talked at the time and everything like that, if you can't take that time or you don't have the time, don't do a period piece. It's like when you see a movie set in the 60s, but you see like a 90s Chevrolet, like on the streets of the movie. That's how it takes me out of these things. As I say every now and then for the premiere, if you're watching, we're only like a half hour into this film, so be careful. The costume design, like all their outfits, that's good. Like, that's believable. It looks pretty good to me. I'm reaching for positives here because as good as the cinematography is and the sets, and it's good to see Catherine Isabel and Emily Perkins always, none of this is interesting or exciting or entertaining in any way, shape, or form. This is a very boring first act of a movie. This movie's really getting out there, and still no werewolf action, except for like a quick dream that Brigitte has, and like the very beginning. Like, there's been no werewolves, but yet there's this deformed kid, kind of like Argento's Phenomena, who's locked up. They got him locked up in this fort in a friggin' dark-ass room, and he ends up biting Ginger because she hears a sound and gets woken up, goes, finds this room, unlocks it. I mean, anybody, you see a bolted-ass door on a room that's dark, it's probably bolted for a reason, but yet she goes in, and on her way out, she gets bitten. And then we find out that this kid is the son of some guy who's here at the fort. His name is Wallace, but I couldn't tell you who the hell Wallace is. Werewolves better, like, start tearing shit up, like, soon, or I'm going to be very pissed. First of all, after all this stuff that they're hearing about werewolves, she's not the least bit concerned that this deformed kid just bit her shoulder and that it could possibly be a werewolf. And then we finally get some werewolf action when a werewolf attacks the fort. And there's a kill, like this one of the soldiers, whatever, he gets killed and mauled by the werewolf, like through the door of the fort. And they have to ask a guy to put, the wood plank, the beam, to lock the door, like the opening door to this fort. Why the fuck isn't that thing on the door at all times? It should be a mandatory requirement for that door to be barricaded. So they've been getting attacked by werewolves. This is common knowledge. They're terrified of these things. They have a whole graveyard outside the fort with graves upon graves of the people who have been killed by werewolves. Why isn't that fort? Why don't they have people on the walls, crow's nests, looking out all the time for werewolves? Why is that door open? That is ridiculously stupid. Then there's this whole random scene where Ginger, after being bit by the deformed son, who's a werewolf, they confirm it, she gets taken away to be leech tested for lycanthropy. And Brigitte gets separated from her, and this guy at the fort, is about to rape her. And, I mean, this is going to sound terrible and awful, but wait till you hear where I'm coming from. Why does everyone in this series try to rape Brigitte? This is the second movie now. There's the weird guy who gives drugs to the patients at the hospital that Brigitte's in the second movie that tries raping her too. Now, this is where it gets awful in a way. I think they're both adorable. Like, both Emily Perkins and her. So I'm not speaking from my point of view, but they established this in the first movie. That Ginger is the hot one, and she's the one all the guys are after and stuff like that. And even though they are outcasts, like, that's how she's viewed. I don't even know if I can say it. Why is Brigitte the only one that is repeatedly in this situation? I don't know. I don't get the whole attempted rape of Brigitte in both of these movies. And yeah, I didn't go completely where I was heading. Which, speaking of all that, back to some channel talk. I also want to say thanks to everybody who is on the up and up and is intelligent and is smart, who watches, and friends of mine and people I talk with, that they recognize my sarcasm and my sense of humor and my dark sense of humor and little lines that I'll teeter on here and there. I try not to cross any, but for those of you who do appreciate it and recognize it for just what it is, just sarcasm and just having fun and jokes here. This, of course, I'm not serious about any of the dark shit that I'll make fun of on here, but it's another thing that I'm very appreciative of, that I'm able to toe that line with certain topics pretty safely, because most of the people who watch, you guys know me by now. You guys know how I am, you know my personality, and you know I'm fucking around. So that means a lot too. So I didn't go all the way there, but I figured I'd meet you in the middle with a nice little thank you and explanation there. Alright, here's another positive for this movie. We have Brendan Fletcher in here, who, if I recall, was in the sequel, was in number 2, but he plays a completely different character, obviously, because this is in the 19th century. But he was also in Freddy vs. Jason. That's what I know him from most. So it's good to see him here. Like, he was bit by one of the werewolves, and the doctor, not Robert Englund, tells him, you know, he sees his wound, and he asks him, he says, no, I was not bit, I'm sure of it, none of them got near me. He so obviously was bitten. So he tells him to put the leech on him. Again, I don't know what all this with the leech is. I mean, he's in this movie for 2 minutes before he gets blasted away by non-Englund. Good to see him, though, and they do elaborate a little bit on the leech thing, because he ends up at gunpoint telling Brendan Fletcher's character, Finn, to put the leech on him. And he has a reaction where, like, it burns him or something like that, but it instantly causes a reaction in him that shows that he was bitten. He has the werewolf gene or whatever inside of him. So they do explain it. It's clever, like I said, but I still don't know how I fully feel about it. Now, like I said very early on with the werewolf design in the first 2 movies, how I don't care for it, even though it's not terrible. The werewolf corpse that they killed here, that attacked the fort, that looks much better. But then again, I thought to myself, it's dead there on the ground. They're not animating it or moving it or anything like that to make it like a lifelike werewolf. So then I kind of retracted that. But it does look cool. The biggest issue with this movie so far, we're almost done with this. I skipped ahead a bit, like not in the movie, but since this last edit, I watched like 20 minutes more or so. Even the performances by Catherine Isabel and Emily Perkins in this film aren't up to par, man. It's a lot worse than the previous 2 films, and I get it. The first Ginger Snaps, I forget if either of them were in anything before that, but that's definitely the movie that, you know, started their careers and made them, you know, names. They were young, so of course, like, it's a first or one of first films, you're going to put your all into it. And then for Ginger Snaps 2, you had Emily Perkins taking the lead and being the main character in that. So I'm sure she brought her A game there too. And I said in that video, I love her acting in it. This just feels real phoned in. Like, this just seems like a paycheck. That's what it feels like. And we don't even have enough of them, even though it centers around them. There's so much stuff with all the soldiers here and the doctor and Dr. Murphy. I'm surprised I remembered that. And there's a few twists and turns they try to take, but none of it's interesting. Like, Wallace, the father of the deformed kid, Joffrey, he tries striking a deal with Ginger and Brigitte to keep it silent that Ginger was bitten if they keep the secret that he's been keeping his son, who's been bitten by a werewolf, and this is a werewolf basically, or turning into one, in this fort, in this locked room. So I keep your secret, you guys keep my secret. How is this guy even keeping this secret? How is he keeping his son locked up in this fort where mad people are all over the place? No one's opened that door. Nobody's gone in there and investigated and saw that it's Joffrey, the son of this guy Wallace, who's their fellow person at the fort, and said, what the hell's going on, man? Like, why is your son, he's supposed to be dead? None of that makes sense. All of it's handled terribly. Tubi wants me to tell you to use Instacart to get healthy food and stuff delivered right to your doorstep. This is the type of video this turned into, but it's been a decent while since I plugged a Tubi commercial into a video. So, there you go. So then we end up seeing Joffrey. It's Jeffrey, but I don't know. I like pronouncing it Joffrey. Sounds more comedic, because his character's stupid and retarded. And they both find him. And Ginger says to Brigitte, that's the boy who bit me. And it plays back to the beginning when the old bitch at the abandoned place said, you gotta kill the boy. Otherwise one of you will kill each other. So she says that's what she was talking about. I gotta kill him. Otherwise, the curse will remain. Right. They say it's like the curse of the red and black, which I think is so dumb, because they're just referring to their hair color. She's a redhead, Brigitte has black hair, so the red and black, I mean, come on. They could have gotten much more creative with all of this movie. But that especially, that's stupid. So poor Joffrey, he's at like his mom's grave, who I guess got killed by a werewolf. Same graveyard where everybody else has been. But you never know, maybe she tripped and fell down in the forest, cracked her head open. Who knows? They never say. And he ends up trying to escape, and then his father, Wallace, has to shoot him dead. Then Ginger and Brigitte go off to look for a cure, since Ginger was bitten. And they end up going back to meet the hunter. And they see the old woman again. And supposedly this prophecy of the red and black, of Ginger and Brigitte, they're going to determine the whole werewolf bloodline. Like, what happens to it. Again, they feel like doppelgangers to me, but that's just me. Discount Robert Englund, he gets blown away by Wallace. Another thing quick on Joffrey, the design of him. He's turning into a werewolf, and as we know in the previous two movies, it's a gradual transformation, which, like I said in the first film, I really, really liked that decision that they went with. We've seen so many and famous examples of just a quick transformation into a werewolf. So I like the gradual thing. And we see her turning, like her face with the snarled wrinkles. I don't know, that's the best way I can get that thought out. We see her go through that facial transformation before becoming an actual werewolf. This guy, was he deformed already? This kid? And he looked like this fucked up looking kid? And then he got the werewolf bite, and now that's being mixed with him transforming into a werewolf, because this guy's transformation looks hideous, to go through and to look at, compared to anything that we saw with Ginger in the first movie. So I forget if they even mentioned, was he a deformed kid, like Jason Voorhees, or like I said, Phenomena, and then he got bit, and now he's turning? Or is that just the transformation? Into a werewolf from a normal kid? It doesn't matter. There is, though, some good, again, shots in the woods when they go back to see the hunter and the old woman, with the fog everywhere. It has a good atmosphere. All the wooded scenes in this movie, that's one of the biggest praises I can give this movie, and as you can tell, I'm really reaching. Alright, so going back to what I said about one of the biggest flaws with this is the performances from Isabel and Perkins, and the fact that they're not in this as much. As the third act goes, we do get a lot more of them. the performances, though, they don't get any better. Perkins, I think, gives a better performance than Catherine Isabel in this movie. And, I mean, it's not a surprise. I don't want to say that because, like I said, I really love her performance in the first movie, and I really enjoy it in the second film, since she had to carry that movie. She does fine. They both do. It's just not up to par with their performances in the first two movies and from other things that I've seen them in. Alright, here's the best way I can explain this movie. It's basically like a political clash between two groups of people in this fort and their feelings and opinions on werewolves. And people are shooting other people to stop them from killing Ginger because she was bitten, and the same with the son while they're trying to protect them. Others are trying to kill these werewolves and people who were bitten immediately. There's so much werewolf politics that go on in this movie, and that's what takes up like the first act and a half, 2 acts of this movie, which is why we have less of Ginger and Brigitte, because it's all these people who don't speak Old English who are just debating with each other or backstabbing each other. Everyone trying to deceive everyone in this movie. We're getting to the end here. This is not good. So when they're with the hunter and the old woman, they're asking for a way to stop this prophecy from coming true with the red and the black. And now it makes more sense of her opening words, the old woman, when she says, you got to kill the boy, meaning Joffrey, as I said, but otherwise, one of you is going to kill the other. So she saw, ahead of time that one of them was going to be bitten and start turning into a werewolf and would kill the other sister. So that makes sense. And it's decent. Like, it's a decent little, I don't want to say twist, but a way to tie that all together with the intro scene that we got with this woman. So they want an answer how to stop this. The old woman says, the way to stop it was kill your sister before the boy bit her. Which is hilarious. Then they Brigitte, especially, I think, drinks this potion that it's probably like ayahuasca or some shit. So that ayahuasca puts her into a trance where she could see into the future. And she sees that the hunter tries to kill Ginger, and she ends up killing Ginger herself, Brigitte, killing her sister. I'm going to guess they just break this at the end, and that's not going to happen, and they're going to flee away together, and that's exactly what the ending of this movie is going to be. So then Ginger, after Brigitte comes out of her ayahuasca trip, she ends up seeing the old bitch. She was killed by Ginger. Ginger's like fully starting to transform, and then she lets all the werewolves into the fort, which kills everybody. Wallace gets bit, Joffrey's father, and then he burns the whole place down after he ends up killing himself because he knows he's going to turn. So he wants to torch this entire place. Everybody's killed. Then, just like I said, the hunter shows up, and he tells Brigitte that she has to kill Ginger in order to stop all this and fulfill the prophecy. And she ends up killing the hunter instead. Then her and Ginger run off into the sunset, and all is well in Tinseltown. They have a nice little callback to the first movie, actually, where they, cut their palms, and they do the blood pact, but this obviously now infects Brigitte also. It's not good. This is really, really a huge drop in quality. And again, I know it's direct-to-video, and actually, for being direct-to-video, it's not as bad quality-wise as you would think. Like I said, the set dressing is good. The sets look good. The fort looks really good. There's good cinematography. That's about it. Like with this movie, there's no real other positives aside from just having Catherine Isabel and Perkins on screen, which again, they're just phoned in performances. It feels like they just shot this right after 2 and said maybe we can recoup some of that money that 2 lost, being released theatrically. And that's exactly how this feels. The whole old setting doesn't work for me. The period piece, how they don't keep to it at all, how all the details just take me out of it. All the other performances aren't great in this at all. It's not interesting. It's like I said, it's like werewolf politics, and werewolves are not a big subgenre of mine that I really liked. Like, there's maybe 10 werewolf movies that I could think of and name that I love and adore. Ginger Snaps, the original, is one of those. But for this movie and for a prequel, I mean, this was very hard to watch. It's not terrible. It's not a terrible film. I didn't feel like I wasted my time here watching it. But I would never watch this movie again. Are you serious? I would never throw this movie on. Even at gunpoint, I would have to resist it very hard about throwing this movie on again. I was so just not excited or engaged at all through any of this. So, I mean, that's Ginger Snaps back the beginning, and I only got it right that time because it ended, it's paused, and the title is on the screen. The beginning. If you're a huge fan of this movie, or I should say series, and you haven't seen this one, I don't even know if I should say take a shot, but usually I always do. Take a shot on it. I mean, if you're a huge fan of both the first one and the second one, and love the story and love the bond between the sisters, which I love all of that, it's going to be 50-50 for you with this movie. You're either going to think this is pretty awful for the most part, or you might enjoy it. I can see people enjoying this. I know people enjoy this prequel. But this was not for me. So, that's that movie. That's that series. After 2 years, the trilogy is finished. And, as always, thank you guys so much. After 2 years and passing 1,000 subscribers recently, it means the world to me. All your support, all your love. So it was fun to talk some channel stuff on here and pretty much rip this movie apart, which isn't something that is rare on this channel. Hope everyone's having a good morning, afternoon, or night. I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Who the fuck is Wallace in this movie? Check that film out. And tells Brigitte he has to kill Ginger. But another thing that bothers me... Come on. Talk, motherfucker. Speak English. Which plays into this next thing. One thing I do like, clever little, I don't know how it works. If it actually does, if it's a scientific thing. It's not because werewolves don't exist. There's definitely bloopers coming in this video. Be careful. I don't know why I say that.